chemical that would make the frac fluid more slick and yet carry the proppant, the sand grains, into the fractures.
And then I guess the next question is...
We can find out.
No, I mean, I'm not in favor of it anyway, so you don't have to find out on my account. But what is the likelihood that the oil that would come out of the ground in this area would have to be fracked? That's my first question. And the second question is, when you allow a permit, do you allow a normal drilling type permit, which also means they could frack later if necessary? Is that how it works, or do you allow for one type of oil or another, one type of drill or well permit versus another?
I don't believe the well permit regs make a distinction between whether it's fracked or not. And I think
that's a decision that's left to the discretion of the operator, how they complete it. I might say, just as from the 10,000-foot level, you're entering a very interesting area of the law here, and that has to do with the regulation of oil and gas drilling activity at the state level by the Corporation Commission, and your powers under home rule. And there's some brand new cases out of Colorado where cities along the Front Range have placed very heavy restrictions on oil and gas activity in their city limits. And they've gotten into litigation, certainly with the developer, but with the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission over whether or not the Colorado State level commission has preempted the field, and that the cities don't have enough power or conflicting power under home rule. And you see this again in New York and in Pennsylvania, West Virginia to an extent, where industry has found these shales that are very productive of hydrocarbons and have developed frac techniques to open them up, and we have a lot more production in the country as a result of it. So I'm just suggesting to you that it's from a kind of a legal academic standpoint, it's a very interesting kind of frontier area that we're talking about.
I got, and Steve, I kind of saw you motioning over there.
Yeah.
I got two real quick things, and then I'll let you ask a question.
Sure.
But at some point we need to move on to urban farming. But you mentioned interesting area of the law, which usually means expensive in my experience. You mentioned litigation, and those are things that we have to certainly weigh in the decision. The other thing is to Heath's point. I'd sure like to see from staff, and Mike, some of this could probably come from your department, but some of it's probably going to have to come from finance or administration about the financial impact of producing wells on those properties is for not just the people that are producing the oil, but for the city and the rest of the residents of the city. And I think we need more information about that. So, Steve, did you have another question?
Yeah, a couple quick ones. You mentioned somewhat the newness of the legal areas with regard to fracturing. We know that that's a relatively new technology. It's actually been able to revitalize wells that we thought were dead. And so that's part of the discussion here, and how, and that whole area of case law is still a frontier jurisdiction. So the second thing is, and this is a real concern of mine, is the vast majority of the new wells that have been created over the last 10 to 12 years have occurred outside the city limits. I mean, just outside the city limits, on adjacent parcels. So are we not, in a sense, already landlocked by those bad development? How do we, as a city, determine how individuals who are in unincorporated county land can create, can drill a well? I mean, I would think that we would have to have some sort of a dialogue with the county as well, and let them know of our intentions with regard to annexation, so that we can maybe preempt some of this activity, if that is really our intention, is to try to develop those properties.
Well, and I think that outreach to the county is going to be important. important.
Absolutely.
I think that can come from the governing body level and the staff level as well. Anyone else?
I guess for me,
Yeah.
this really, I mean, I'm kind of with Heath in the fact that I think we need to have a decision, because to me, this is quite simple. It comes down to whether you value individual property rights and an individual's ability to do what they want within a certain aspect of regulation, or whether you believe the greater good to the community, whether it's development or environmental concerns, it trumps that. So that, to me, every time we have a person that wants to do this, we've had it with the Russell property. If I were them, I'd be like, listen, that's my property. I meet requirements as far as the number of acres I have. I want to come before you and I want to do it. So either, to me, it's just cut and dry to say we do it or we don't. We're going to allow it or we're not, and not on this case-by-case basis.
I would agree with that.
So,
Well, who's in favor of it then in that case? I mean, who? I think it's,
Does anyone want to come out in favor or against
I'll come
this
out.
at this point?
I'll come out against. I mean, this is a community of people who mostly live here, and that's part of the attraction we have is that we, we respect, the rights of others, not just personal property rights. So I don't see any benefit to it.
Well,
And in fact, I see great harm.
well,
I agree.
I think they're putting me on the
Take
spot
that
here
position.
because of the
I've got
whole situation.
misgivings.
Personal property rights. There is, and I am absolutely in favor of allowing individuals who own private property to be able to do with that private property what they wish, unless, and this is the big unless that activity is going to impinge upon the rights of others. So you're talking, like, for example, environmental issues. That's very much something that falls within that jurisdiction. So if there's evidence, and I believe there is evidence that shows that wildcatting and hydraulic fracturing, as well as the production of oil on land and producing wells, can have environmental impacts away from that property, whether it's runoff or groundwater contamination, et cetera. Then there has to be some sort of an evaluation of that, because you're not just talking about that individual's private property; you're talking about the properties around it. So, I think that we need to let's take a look at. I'd like to see a little bit more of an idea of what we're going to be voting on before I say I'm going to support it. But I think that there's definitely some discussion that can be had about it. Absolutely.
Corey?
I actually agree with everybody. I feel like I need more information. I don't think I can say yes or no right now. It'd be interesting to see what other adjoining our local communities are doing, how they're approaching it. It worries me, the plug wells, like what we would do development, like in those areas of plugged wells later. That bothers me too a little bit. So I feel like I need a little more information. I'm not ready to say yes or no.
Okay. All right, well, I think that's where we are, staff. You feel like you've got a
Yep.
good feeling of where it is that we want to go. Mr. I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Mike, thanks for that. Item number 2, and hate to cut urban agriculture short, but I will remind everyone that the regularly scheduled council meeting is supposed to start at 7, so we're going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. And if we bump up on 7 and we're still needing conversation, then perhaps we'll continue it after the council meeting. So, with that, Mike, go ahead.
Okay. I guess I should talk fast.
Yes.
Okay. So, and we'll go into a lot of the background why we got here, or where we got here. I think everybody knows that, for the most part. I want to start with the definition of urban agriculture, urban farming, urban agriculture. They're synonymous.